Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine if one book, written, over 2 millennia ago, could still offer a radical blueprint for how we live,
Hmm.
how societies are structured, maybe even what it means to be truly happy. That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Our source for this deep dive is none other than Plato's monumental work, The Republic. We're using the Benjamin Jowett translation here.
A classic translation.
And this isn't just some dusty old text. It's really a foundational piece of Western thought. It's influenced, well, everything from philosophy to education, and people still argue about it constantly.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how Plato, mainly through Socrates' dialogues, weaves together politics, ethics, and these really deep philosophical questions. It's all one big picture for him.
Right.
The Republic isn't just another dialogue. Many see it as the center, the core around which his other works kind of orbit. He reaches these speculative heights that ancient thinkers rarely touched.
Like a master key, you said before.
Exactly. A master key to so much Western thought.
And our mission today, well, it's to try and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from this incredibly rich material. We'll explore his core arguments about justice, how he imagines this, well, ideal society, and what that might mean for you, the individual listening.
Yeah. Get ready for some surprising facts, maybe a few aha moments along the way.
Definitely. Could make you rethink some things.
Yeah.
So the Republic kicks off with what seems like a simple question. What is justice? But as you'd expect with Socrates, it quickly spirals into something way deeper, much more complex. Socrates starts by chatting with this old wealthy guy, Cephalus. What's Cephalus's initial take?
Well, Cephalus offers a very traditional view, almost common sense, you might say. For him, justice is simply to speak the truth and to pay your debts.
Okay. Straightforward.
Yeah, and he ties it to the peace of mind that wealth brings in old age. Not having to worry about the afterlife because you stiffed the gods or didn't pay someone back. It's practical, comfortable.
But Socrates, being Socrates, he can't just leave it there, can he? He immediately starts prodding at this definition.
Right.
He notes that, yeah, wealth can be a great comforter, but then he says the people who make fortunes often love money in this obsessive way, almost like poets love their poems. So what's the point there?
It suggests that Cephalus's understanding, while comfortable, might be a bit shallow, limited, perhaps.
Rooted in convention.
Exactly. Rooted more in convention and personal comfort than deep philosophical insight. Plato presents him as belonging to this sort of pre-dialectical age, unable to really defend his notions under questioning. His justice is convenient.
And he kind of bows out of the conversation pretty quickly, doesn't he? Hands it over to his son, Polemarchus.
Yes, Polemarchus jumps in with a different idea, one that probably sounds familiar. Justice is helping friends and harming enemies.
Ah, okay. That sounds more like a practical rule, like how you navigate the world, alliances, rivalries.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Very common idea then, and maybe even now. But Socrates, again, he just picks it apart.
How so?
Well, he uses these clever analogies, like if a just man is good at keeping money safe, doesn't that imply he'd also be good at stealing it? He knows how security works, right?
Oh, cool.
Or if justice is useful for keeping your shield safe when you're not fighting, then it's actually useless when you need the shield in battle.
Ah, right.
So it raises this really sharp question. Is justice only valuable when things are, like, inactive or useless? It forces you to think about what justice is actually for.
And just as they're grappling with that, Thrasymachus bursts in. The description is amazing, like a wild beast seeking to devour them. He doesn't hold back, does he?
Not at all. He crashes the party with this incredibly bold declaration.
Yeah.
Justice is the interest of the stronger.
Hmm.
He argues rulers, the strong ones, always make laws that benefit them, not the people they rule. Justice is just a tool for the powerful.
That's a massive challenge. It basically says the whole concept is a sham.
It's a radical, cynical view. Thrasymachus believes the happiest people are the tyrants, the ones who commit injustice on a grand scale, while the just folks are miserable saps.
Okay.
For him, rulers, if they're truly skilled at ruling, are unerring and always act in their own self-interest. It's the definition of ruling, he thinks.
So how on earth does Socrates respond to that? It feels like a conversation stopper.
He uses analogies, again, really brilliantly. Think about a doctor. What's the aim of medicine?
To heal the patient, make the body better.
Right. The good of the body, the patient, not the doctor's own profit. Or a ship's pilot. Their art aims for the safety of the ship and sailors, not just the pilot.
Okay, I see where he's going.
So Socrates connects this to ruling. He argues that no true art or skill considers the interest of the stronger or the practitioner, but always the interest of the subject, the weaker one who is served by the art.
So a true ruler, by definition of the art of ruling.
Stay for the good of the ruled, not their own advantage. It turns Thrasymachus' definition on its head.
Wow. And then there's that twist about why good people rule.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Socrates concludes that good, capable people wouldn't want power for its own sake. They'd only take office out of fear of punishment.
Punishment, like fines or something.
No, the punishment is being ruled by one who is worse than himself. They rule reluctantly, to avoid being governed by someone bad or incompetent.
That completely flips the script on political ambition, doesn't it?
Mm.
Okay, so Thrasymachus is silenced. Maybe not convinced, but silenced. But then Glaucon steps up. He's not satisfied. He really pushes Socrates.
This is a crucial moment. Glaucon says basically, okay, Socrates, you've argued justice is better than injustice, but prove it's good in itself, not just for the rewards or reputation it brings.
He wants the deep justification. And he sets up this incredible thought experiment, right? The ring of Gyges comes in here, doesn't it? Although maybe we skip the ring details for now. But the core is comparing two lives.
Exactly. He says, imagine the perfectly unjust man who has a flawless reputation for being just. Everyone loves him. He's successful.
Gets away with everything.
Right. And compare him to the perfectly just man who, through misfortune or conspiracy, has the worst possible reputation. He's seen as unjust, he suffers terribly, but he is truly just.
And the question is, which one is happier?
Yeah. Glaucon even suggests that maybe appearance tyrannizes over truth and is a lord of happiness, that maybe hiding wickedness is the smart path. He points out many people secretly believe men are not just of their own free will. They'd all be unjust if they could get away with it.
It's such a powerful challenge. How does Socrates even begin to answer that?
He takes this amazing detour. He says, look, justice in an individual soul is hard to see. Let's build a city in speech, an ideal state, starting from scratch. Justice might be easier to see on that larger scale, and then we can apply it back to the individual.
So the whole construction of the ideal city is basically an analogy to understand the just soul.
Precisely. And it starts super basic. What do humans need? Food, shelter, clothing.
The essential.
Right. And immediately they realize you need specialization. A farmer, a builder, a weaver, a shoemaker. Because, as Plato puts it, we are not all alike. There are diversities of natures among us, which are adapted to different occupations.
Division of labor. Makes sense for efficiency, quality.
Absolutely. And as the city grows, you need more roles. Carpenters, smiths, herders, eventually merchants, sailors, a marketplace, currency. It develops organically from needs.
So in this very basic, healthy state, as Socrates calls it, where does justice actually show up? Is it just in the fair exchange?
Adamantus, Glaucon's brother, suggests, yeah, it's probably in the dealings of these citizens with one another. But then Glaucon jumps back in. He's not satisfied with this simple life.
He finds it boring.
He calls it a city of pigs. He wants more than just survival. He demands, couches, fancy tables, desserts, perfumes, the ordinary conveniences of life, as he puts it, luxuries.
And that's the turning point, isn't it? From the healthy state to the
luxurious state, or sometimes called the feverish state.
Right. And this desire for luxury has consequences.
Big consequences. Pursuing fine arts, gold, ivory, all these extras means the city needs more resources, more land. It has to enlarge our borders.
Which leads inevitably to...
Plato has Socrates state it bluntly. And so we shall go to war, Glaucon, shall we not?
Wow. So the pursuit of luxury directly leads to conflict.
In this model, yes. And war requires an army. And an army requires a specialized class of warriors, the guardians.
Okay, so now we need these guardians, the protectors. What kind of people do they need to be? It sounds like a tricky combination.
It really is. They need to be physically capable, obviously quick, swift, strong, but also psychologically equipped. They need courage, spirit, or thumos.
Spirit, like fierceness, aggression.
Yeah, but that's the paradox Plato flags immediately. Spirited natures are often apt to be savage with one another, and also towards the citizens they're supposed to protect.
Right. You need them to be dangerous to their enemies and gentle to their friends. How do you get both in one person? That seems like a fundamental tension.
Plato suggests the key is a kind of philosophical nature. He uses the analogy of a well-bred dog.
A dog.
Yeah, a noble dog is gentle to people it knows, its family, but fierce towards strangers. So the key is knowledge, familiarity. Gentleness comes from knowing who is friend, fierceness towards the unknown enemy.
Okay, so knowledge is the key to balancing the spirit, which means their education is absolutely critical.
Paramount. And he outlines two main branches, gymnastic for the body and music for the soul.
Music meaning more than just songs, right?
Much more. It includes all the arts, literature, poetry, storytelling, basically the entire cultural and intellectual education. And interestingly, he says music comes first.
Why first? Why stories before physical training?
Because the beginning is the most important part of any work, especially in the case of a young and tender thing, for that is the time at which the character is being formed. Stories shape the soul from the very start.
And this leads him to that really controversial idea, censorship.
Yes, a radical proposal. Censorship of the traditional myths, the stories told by poets like Homer and Hesiod.
Censorship of Homer, that's huge. The Greeks revered Homer. How does he justify censoring these foundational stories? People today would find that incredibly problematic.
Oh, it is problematic for many, but Plato's reasoning is purely about shaping virtue as guardians. He argues that stories showing gods lying, fighting, being vengeful, or causing evil are bad lies.
Why bad lies?
Because his ideal view is that God, or the divine, must be perfectly good, the cause of good only, unchanging, and incapable of falsehood. So these traditional myths give a harmful, false impression of divinity.
So children shouldn't hear them because it sets a bad example, corrupts their view of goodness.
Exactly. For Plato, these aren't just stories, they're moral instruction.
Yeah.
Bad models lead to bad character.
What about stories of the afterlife, Hades and all that?
Those need to be controlled too. No terrifying descriptions of Hades, no making death seem like this awful, grim prospect.
Why not?
Because guardians must fear slavery more than death. They need to be willing to die for the city's freedom. Scary death stories would make them cowardly, unwilling to face danger. It's all geared towards civic courage.
Okay, so no horror stories. What about comedy? You mentioned earlier maybe no stand-up comics in the Republic?
Pretty much. Plato thought excessive laughter leads to a violent emotional reaction, a loss of self-control. So important figures, especially gods, shouldn't be depicted as overcome by laughter. It undermines dignity and self-mastery.
And what about lies in general? He's censoring bad lies from poets, but does anyone get to lie?
Yes, this is a famous bit. He argues that if anyone at all is to have the privilege of lying, the rulers of the state should be the persons.
The rulers get to lie.
Yes, in their dealings either with enemies or with their own citizens, they can lie for the public good. But only them, no one else. It's a tool of statecraft, reserved for the wise rulers.
That's a very particular view of truth and governance. What about that other issue? Glaucon raised the idea that poets show wicked men being happy and just men suffering.
Another huge problem for Plato. He calls it a gravest misstatement. Poets in the ideal state will be basically commanded to sing and say the opposite.
Forced optimism.
Forced alignment with philosophical truth, as Plato sees it. The whole point of the Republic is to demonstrate that justice is advantageous, brings true happiness, whether people see it or not.
Okay, beyond the content of stories, he also worries about the style, about imitation, right? Mimesis.
Yes, this is crucial. Guardians shouldn't just learn about virtue, they should embody it. So they should only imitate noble characters, courageous, temperate, holy, free.
Why such a strict rule on what they can act out or embody?
Because Plato believed imitations, beginning in early youth, at length grow into habits and become a second nature, affecting body, voice, and mind. You become what you imitate.
So no imitating flawed characters, no women slaves villain.
No, only a pure imitator of virtue is allowed. He feared that imitating vice, even for art, could corrupt the imitator's soul.
Wow. Okay, moving from soul to body health and medicine, what's his take there? Is it just about battlefield readiness?
Partly, but it's also connected to the soul. He says the good soul, by her own excellence, improves the body. He's actually quite critical of people who are obsessed with their health, always doctoring and increasing and complicating their disorders because they live intemperate lives.
So discipline is key to health.
Yes, in his well-ordered state, people have work to do, they have purpose, they have no leisure to spend in continually being ill. He even cites the healing god Asclepius, saying he only cured specific, curable illnesses, not chronic conditions caused by bad living. He wouldn't patch up good-for-nothing lives that would just produce weaker offspring.
That sounds quite harsh, almost eugenic.
It has that element, prioritizing the health and function of the collective over individual chronic care, especially if it stems from lifestyle.
What about judges? Should they be young and idealistic or older and experienced?
Definitely older and experienced. He argues young judges, even if good, might be naive, easily practiced upon by the dishonest.
So they need worldly wisdom.
Yes, but interestingly, he says a judge should have learned to know evil, not from his own soul, not by being evil himself, but from late and long observation of the nature of evil in others. Knowledge should be the guide, not personal experience advice, that preserves their own soul's health.
Okay, so after all this incredibly intense lifelong training and shaping, how do they actually pick the ultimate rulers from this guardian class?
Through relentless testing, lifelong trials designed to see if their commitment to the state's good can be broken.
How do they test them?
Three main ways: resisting theft, which means being persuaded or tricked out of their true beliefs; resisting force, meaning pain or grief that might make them change their principles; and resisting enchantment, meaning the allure of pleasure or the terror of fear that could sway their judgment.
So they're tested against persuasion, pain, and pleasure, fear.
Exactly. Only those who come through victorious and pure at every stage, proving their loyalty is absolute and unshakable, are finally appointed as the rulers, the true philosopher-kings.
And this brings us to the noble lie, or the myth of the metals. This feels like one of the most controversial parts. Why does Plato think this foundational myth, this lie, is necessary?
It is hugely controversial. He calls it noble because its purpose is to promote social harmony and acceptance of one's role. The myth tells all citizens they were born from the earth, making them siblings, but that the god mixed different metals into their souls.
Gold, silver, brass, iron.
Right. Gold for the rulers, silver for the auxiliaries, the warrior guardians, and brass or iron for the farmers and craftsmen.
But isn't that just a rigid caste system based on birth?
Not entirely. And this is the subtle part. Plato stresses it's not strictly hereditary. A golden parent will sometimes have a silver son, or a brass parent might have a golden child. The key is that society must identify the metal in each child and place them in the appropriate class and education track, ensuring everyone is put to the use for which nature intended him.
So it's a myth to justify a meritocracy based on perceived natural aptitude, ensuring social order.
Precisely. It's a way to get everyone to buy into the system and their place within it, for the sake of the whole city's stability, function over factual truth for the masses.
And then there's the lifestyle of these guardians. No private property, communal living, even sharing wives and children. Why go to such extremes?
Adimantus actually raises this point. Won't the guardians be miserable without personal wealth or families?
Yeah, sounds pretty bleak.
But Socrates insists the goal isn't the happiness of one class, but the greatest happiness of the whole state. Private property and families, he argues, create divided loyalties, selfish interests, concerns about mine versus not mine.
So the communal living is meant to eliminate that.
Yes. The community of wives and children is the chief reason for unity. If everyone shares feelings of pleasure and pain regarding the same people and things, the state becomes truly one, like a single organism, completely self-sufficing and focused on the common good. It's radical collectivism designed to stamp out division.
And finally, how does this supposedly ideal state interact with others? Is it isolationist? Aggressive?
It distinguishes between fellow Greeks, Hellenes, and non-Greeks, barbarians. Towards other Greek states, if conflicts arise, they should practice friendly correction. It's seen as a quarrel among friends, to be reconciled, not total war. No enslaving captives, devastating land, burning houses.
Okay, a kind of pan-Hellenic ethic.
Yes, but towards barbarians, Plato says they will deal with them as the Hellenes now deal with one another, which implies the more conventional, harsher rules of warfare, potential enslavement, conquest, etc. So the ideal justice has its limits, geographically and culturally.
Okay, so after building this entire elaborate ideal stata, the classes, the education, the myths, the communal living Socrates finally circles back to the original question, where's the justice in all this?
Yeah, and the answer, he says, was kind of right there all along, tumbling out at our feet. We find it by first identifying the other key virtues in the city.
The other three cardinal virtues, right? Wisdom, courage, and temperance.
Exactly. So wisdom, he says, is found in that small ruling class, the philosopher-guardians. They possess the true knowledge about what's good for the entire city. Their knowledge is wisdom proper.
Makes sense. The rulers need to be wise. What about courage?
Courage is primarily the virtue of the auxiliaries, the warrior class. But it's a specific kind of courage, a kind of salvation, he calls it. It's about preserving the right beliefs, about what should and shouldn't be feared, beliefs instilled by their education.
Preserving beliefs. How does he explain that?
He uses a great analogy of wool dyers. To make a color permanent, like purple, dyers first carefully prepare the white wool so it will hold the dye fast, resisting washing or bleaching.
Okay.
Similarly, the guardian's education prepares their souls so that the color of their opinion about dangers, the belief about what's truly fearful, like dishonor or enslavement, not death, is fixed indelibly, washed neither by pleasure nor pain nor fear. It's steadfastness based on right belief.
Got it. So wisdom in the rulers, courage in the warriors. What about the third virtue, temperance? Where does that reside?
Temperance is interesting because Plato says it stretches throughout the whole city. It's described as the ordering or controlling of certain pleasures and desires, like a man being his own master.
Self-control.
Yes, but on a citywide scale. It means the naturally better principle, reason the rulers, governs the worse, appetites the lower classes. And crucially, everyone agrees on this arrangement. It's the harmony that results when both rulers and subjects consent on who are to rule. So it's found in all classes, an agreement about hierarchy.
Okay, wisdom, courage, temperance. So what's left must be justice.
Exactly. And after identifying the others, justice becomes surprisingly simple, almost obvious in retrospect.
Which is?
The doing of one's own business and not being a meddler.
That's it. Just minding your own business.
In the context of the state, yes. It means each of the three classes, rulers, auxiliaries, producers, sticks to its specific function, the job nature suited it for, and doesn't try to interfere with the others. The carpenter builds, the soldier fights, the ruler rules.
And interfering, crossing those lines.
That, for Plato, is injustice. Meddling, or the interchange of roles, is the ruin of the state. Justice is the principle that keeps everything in its proper place, ensuring the harmonious functioning of the whole.
Okay, so that's justice in the state, everyone doing their own job. How does this map back to the individual soul? Because that was the original challenge from Glaucon.
This is the core of the analogy.
Right.
Plato argues the exact same structure exists within each individual soul. The same principles and habits which there are in the state, he says, exist in us.
So the soul also has three parts.
Yes, mirroring the state's classes. First, the rational part, reason, logos. This is the calculating, deliberative part, the seed of wisdom, which should rule, akin to the philosopher rulers.
Okay.
Second, the spirited part, passion, anger, ambition, thumos. This is the part that feels honor, indignation, courage. It's the natural ally of reason when the soul is in order, like the auxiliary warriors.
He gives that example of Leontius, right? The guy who gets angry at himself for wanting to look at corpses.
Exactly. That shows the spirited part, fighting against a base desire, siding with a sense of what's right or wrong, even if reason hasn't fully articulated it yet. It shows spirit isn't just raw aggression.
And the third part.
The concupiscent or appetitive part, desires, epithumia. This is the largest part, the seat of our desires for food, drink, sex, money, all the physical appetites. It's necessary but potentially chaotic and insatiable, like the producing class.
So justice in the individual is the same principle as in the state.
Precisely. Justice in the soul means the rational part, supported by the spirited part, is firmly in control, ruling over the appetitive part. Each part does its own job harmoniously.
And how do music and gymnastic fit into this internal picture?
They are the tools to create this harmony. Music, culture, arts, philosophy nurtures and refines reason while also soothing the spirit. Gymnastic trains the body but also disciplines the spirited element, preventing it from becoming savage while making sure the appetites don't become lazy or dominant. They bring them into accord.
So virtue isn't just about outward actions, it's about the internal state of the soul. Health versus disease.
Exactly. That's the huge conclusion. Virtue is the health and beauty and well-being of the soul, and vice the disease and weakness and deformity of the same. It answers Glaucon. The just person is healthier and therefore happier, regardless of external appearances, because their soul is ordered correctly.
Okay, so Plato's built the ideal just state and the just soul. But he doesn't stop there. He then shows us how things fall apart, how states and souls degenerate. It's a pretty fascinating, if maybe a bit pessimistic, journey downwards.
It is. It's a powerful analysis of political and psychological decline, moving through four flawed forms of government and the corresponding character types. Democracy, oligarchy, democracy, and finally, tyranny.
And what drives this decline? Is it just random chance?
No, for Plato, it reflects a shift in what the society and the dominant people within it value most. Each step down represents a lower part of the soul taking control.
So the first step down from the ideal aristocracy is?
Democracy. This is a state ruled by honor and ambition, think Sparta maybe. Military values are high, It arises when the ruling class starts making mistakes in breeding and education, mixing the metals iron with silver and brass with gold. The purity of the philosophical rule is lost. Spirit and ambition take over from reason.
And the Timocratic man, what's he like?
He's the timocratical man. He's driven by ambition, loves honor and victory, maybe a bit rougher, less purely philosophical than his father, the ideal ruler type. He might have seen his philosophical father scorned by a society for being unworldly or simple, so he reacts by pursuing honor and maybe wealth, things society respects more. He loses that perfect balance of philosophy, tempered with music.
Okay, so from honor, the next step down is driven by
Wealth. Oligarchy follows democracy. This is a government resting on a valuation of property in which the rich have power and the poor man is deprived of it.
money rules.
Exactly. The constant pursuit and accumulation of private wealth by the ruling class and the timocracy eventually undermines the honor system. As riches become more honored, virtue declines. This inevitably creates a split city. One the city of the poor, the other of the rich. These are at war with one another.
Sounds familiar. And the individual oligarch.
The oligarchical man is typically the son of a timocrat. He sees his ambitious father ruined, perhaps losing his fortune or status, and reacts by becoming extremely frugal, cautious, and focused solely on acquiring wealth.
So he suppresses everything else.
Yes, he keeps his unnecessary desires firmly in check, but only out of miserliness, not true virtue. He's respectable on the surface, focused on business, but Plato says he's internally conflicted. Two men and not one, always suppressing parts of himself. He lacks inner harmony, driven by the single passion for gain.
From oligarchy, where the few rich rule, where does Plato see society going next?
Towards democracy. He argues the insatiable desire for ever more wealth in the oligarchy leads to its downfall. The rich encourage lending and extravagance, which indebts and impoverishes many, while the rich themselves become soft and decadent.
Creating resentment.
Massive resentment. The poor see the rich are weak and eventually rise up, often violently, and establish a democracy.
And how does Plato characterize democracy? He calls it the fairest of states, but seems critical.
Yeah, it's ironic. He describes it as full of liberty and variety, a kind of charming anarchy where everyone does as they please. He gives a sort of equality to equals and unequals alike, but he sees it as fundamentally disordered.
Why disordered?
Because there's no principle, no hierarchy. Condemned criminals might wander freely. Expertise is disregarded. Anyone who professes to be the people's friend can rise to power, regardless of qualification. Necessary desires and unnecessary ones are treated as equal. It tramples on the fine notions of the ideal state.
And the democratic man, what's his life like?
The democratical man is often the son of that stingy oligarch. Having been repressed, he gets a taste of the drone's honey, unnecessary pleasures, freedom without limits, and he goes all in.
Swings the other way.
Completely. Moderation is banished. Insolence becomes good breeding. Anarchy becomes liberty. Waste becomes magnificence. His life has neither law nor order. He indulges every whim, every appetite as it arises. One day he's philosophizing, the next he's drunk, then he's training, then he's idle. He calls this total freedom and bliss.
This sounds like a recipe for chaos. And for Plato, this path of total unchecked freedom leads directly to the worst outcome.
Exactly. Tyranny. The insatiable desire for freedom and democracy, paradoxically, destroys it. The demand for absolute freedom leads to chaos and license, which makes people crave order, any order.
So they look for a strongman.
Precisely. They elevate a protector, someone who promises to restore order, often by championing the poor against the rich. This figure becomes increasingly powerful, demands a bodyguard, stirs up conflict to consolidate power.
And becomes a tyrant.
Yes. He implants a master passion, an obsessive lust for power in his own soul and in the state. He purges rivals, uses fraud and force, maybe redistributes land or cancels debts to keep popular support, but ultimately becomes a parasite to his own country, enslaving it.
It's a terrifyingly logical progression in Plato's view. And this tyrant, the one who achieves total power, is he finally happy? Does he vindicate Thrasymachus?
Absolutely not. It's the complete opposite. The tyrannical state is the most wretched, enslaved, poor, and fearful. It's full of lamentation and sorrow and groaning and pain.
And the man himself?
The tyrannical man is the ultimate psychological prisoner. He's described as the real slave, utterly ruled by his own insatiable lusts and fears. He constantly craves more, trusts no one, lives in perpetual terror. He is not master of himself. Plato concludes he is by far the most miserable of all men, especially if he holds public office. It's the ultimate portrait of inner torment mirroring outer oppression. Just as it turns out, is miles away from this.
So, after that chilling descent into tyranny, Socrates finally comes back to prove his original point against Glaucon and Thrasymachus. How does he definitively argue that the just life, the philosophical life, is actually the happiest and most pleasant?
He does it in a couple of ways. First, he revisits the three main types of lives, based on the three parts of the soul: the life of the lover of gain, appetite; the lover of honor, spirit; and the lover of wisdom, reason, the philosopher.
Right, the three dominant drives.
And he asks, who is the best judge of which life is most pleasant? The criteria for judging, he says, must be experience and wisdom and reason.
Okay, so who has the best credentials?
The philosopher. Why? Because the philosopher, in growing up and living, has necessarily experienced the pleasures of gain, basic survival needs, maybe some wealth, and the pleasures of honor, recognition, achievement. But the lovers of gain and honor have not necessarily experienced the pleasures of learning and understanding truth, the philosopher's specific pleasure.
Ah, so the philosopher has tasted all three kinds of pleasure, while the others only know their own preferred type.
Exactly. Plus, the philosopher's tool is reason, which is the proper instrument for judgment. So, based on broader experience and the right tool, the philosopher is the only reliable judge. And who does the philosopher judge happiest?
The philosopher, presumably. The life of wisdom.
Precisely. The life dedicated to reason and truth brings the truest pleasure.
And he also makes a point about the nature of pleasure itself, doesn't he? Distinguishing true pleasure from something else.
Yes, this is really insightful. He argues that many things we call pleasure, especially bodily pleasures, are actually just a relief of pain or cessation of discomfort.
Like scratching an itch, as you mentioned.
Exactly. Or eating when you're hungry, drinking when you're thirsty. The pleasure is really just returning to a neutral state from a state of lack or pain. They have antecedent pains.
But are there pleasures that aren't like that?
He thinks so. Pure pleasures, like enjoying a beautiful scent or the pleasures of learning, don't require a preceding pain. They are positive joys in themselves. And the pleasures of the intellect, dealing with the invariable, the immortal, and the true, are the purest and most real because their objects are the most real.
So other pleasures are like shadows compared to the philosopher's pleasure.
That's the idea. They're less stable, less true, often just filling a lack. The pleasure of understanding is a positive fulfillment.
And this leads to that incredible calculation, the just king being 729 times happier than the tyrant. Where does that number come from? It seems oddly specific.
It is oddly specific. It's based on Platonic number theory and cosmology, it seems. He takes the distance between the types of lives, aristocrat, captain to timocrat to oligarch, etc., as stages, possibly involving squares and cubes like 3 by 3 equal 9, then 9 by 9 by 9 by 9 be 729. It connects to the idea of cosmic harmony, the number of days and nights in a year.
So it's symbolic, not literal arithmetic.
It's symbolic of a vast, almost cosmically ordained distance. It's meant to be a stunning mathematical-style proof of the immense gap in genuine pleasure and well-being, separating the perfectly just person, the philosopher-king, from the perfectly unjust one, the tyrant. A mic-drop moment, Plato style.
Okay. And he brings back that image of the soul, doesn't he? The monster, the lion, and the man inside.
Yes, it's a powerful summary image. The soul is like a composite creature, a complex, many-headed monster representing the appetites, a lion representing spirit or courage, and the man within representing reason.
And justice is?
Justice is when the man, the rational part, cultivates the gentle qualities of the monster, necessary appetites, tames the wilder parts, makes the lion heart his ally, and establishes complete mastery over the whole creature. Reason rules, spirit helps, appetites obey.
While injustice?
Injustice is internal strife. It's like starving the man and letting the lion and monster run wild, fighting each other, or enslaving the man to the beast. This is why we have laws in education, he argues, to establish that internal guardian and ruler, reason, within each person until they can govern themselves.
And beyond happiness in this life, Plato offers one more prize for justice, doesn't he? Something ultimate.
Immortality. He argues the soul has a nature that cannot be destroyed by its own specific evil, injustice, ignorance, in the way the body can be destroyed by its specific evil disease. External things like injury can destroy the body, but not the soul itself.
So if its own peculiar evil can't destroy it, and external bodily harm can't,
then the soul must exist forever. It's indestructible. This belief in the soul's immortality sets the stage for the grand finale of the Republic, the myth of
Ah, the myth of Tell us about that. It's like a vision of the afterlife.
It is. Is a soldier supposedly killed in battle who revives on his funeral pyre and reports what he saw in the afterlife.
What did he see?
He saw souls being judged for their past lives, experiencing rewards or punishments for 1,000 years. But then comes the crucial part. They all gather before choosing their next life on Earth. They're presented with patterns of lives of tyrants, animals, ordinary citizens, philosophers.
And they get to choose.
They choose, and this is the key message. Virtue is free, the choice is ours. As a soul honors or dishonors her, he will have more or less of her. The responsibility is with the chooser. God is justified. Fate isn't arbitrary.
But do they choose wisely?
Not always. Ayer observes that souls who had been virtuous in their past life merely out of habit without philosophy often made terrible choices, grabbing a tyranny, for instance, not realizing the misery it entailed, while souls who had suffered or who had cultivated sound philosophy often made wiser, more thoughtful choices.
So the ultimate point is that philosophy, true understanding, is essential not just for navigating this life well, but for making the crucial choices that determine our fate across multiple lives.
Exactly. The wisdom gained through the philosophical journey, the journey the Republic itself represents, is presented as having eternal significance. It's the ultimate payoff for pursuing justice and understanding.
Wow. We've really journeyed through an immense landscape today, unpacking Plato's Republic, from those first arguments about what justice even is, through building that intricate ideal state.
Shaping its guardians, diving deep into the structure of the human soul.
Yeah, and then seeing that stark contrast between the truly just life and the utter misery of the tyrannical one, it all ties back to that connection between internal harmony and external well-being, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This deep dive really shows that Plato's core question, how do we live life to the greatest advantage? How do we truly flourish? It's still incredibly relevant, isn't it?
Definitely.
And that ideal state he describes, he admits it might just be a dream impossible to fully realize on Earth. But it exists, he says, as a heavenly pattern.
A pattern for what?
A pattern that individuals, especially philosophers, can look to, understand, and try to imitate in structuring their own souls and maybe influencing their communities. It's an ideal to strive for.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, something to mull over from Plato himself. He asserts that the state in which the rulers are most reluctant to govern is always the best and most quietly governed.
That's a powerful one.
Think about that for a moment. What does this imply about the nature of true leadership, about the motivations we should look for, especially in today's world where, let's be honest, ambition often seems like the main driver for seeking power?
Yeah.
What does Plato's reluctance criterion suggest about who should really be in charge? Leaves you with a lot to consider, doesn't it?